tell me about the event. What's going to happen in Chicago? What are you working on?
So we're doing it's called Common Ground. It's a progressive kind of kickoff to the year. I, I've got some friends that do some content creation, and we're talking about how there's not really, we hate having to get together for a protest always, and there's not all, there's never a something that brings us together where we can actually work on things, like see how things are going and have panels and things like that. So that's what we're working on. We're gonna have some workshops today. We're working on community building, and I'm doing a writing class, and uh, there'll be some nonviolent direct action training, and all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, Tomorrow, the Jam Pod in Chicago is hosting a panel. So there'll be 7 or 8 of us on a panel just discussing different things. And then Kat Abagazale and a couple of other uh, Illinois candidates are having an event at the Riv Theater tomorrow night. So that'll be kind of fun, kind of a ending to it.
Can people tune in remotely, or is it in person only?
We're going to figure that out today here in just a few. So probably either on, and I might try to do it through my Substack if I can.
Yeah.
Um, and then there will be a couple of people doing it on TikTok and Instagram, but I may do it through my Substack. That might be the best option
That's
for
a good
me.
idea. Yeah.
Um,
I'll check it out so I can kind of help you amplify it a little bit if that helps.
yeah, man, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it should be good. I think get a little momentum if we can get some. I keep telling myself if we can get to March and we can see some Democrats against Republicans and generals uh, that show kind of a lead there to give us some good momentum going in. I'll take anything right now with what's going on in Minneapolis and such. So
I think a couple things is, I mean, what I love about what you guys are doing is I get asked probably 3 times a day from folks saying, what can I do? What can I do? People feeling a little bit helpless. The answer is do what you do. When
yeah,
that's the perfect example of what you're doing. It's like, I've got writing skills. I can teach people to write. I can help them amplify it. Just do what you're doing. If you're out there, write. You've got your own audience, even if it's 3 people or family or somebody else in the community, write. Like start making the case. If you're a lawyer, volunteer pro bono for a nonprofit group that needs help. Like if you're an organizer, if you're good at organization skills, volunteer for a group that's putting, events together. Like that's how you make change. It's just do you. Don't feel like you've got
yeah.
to get another job doing something you don't want to do. Do something you're passionate about, that you're good about, that's going to carry you through the day. That's what the moment calls for.
Well, and I think that's kind of what people are doing for the most part. I'm gonna pause for a second so I can silence my phone. I'm so sorry I didn't
That's all right.
put her on. There we go. I'm back. Um, I think that's what people are doing. I think people are just looking for anything to kind of hold on to. And you're exactly right. If you can, you don't have to go out and face ICE agents, at the ICE facilities. I mean, that's not for everybody. Somebody needs to make signs and organize, and do the stuff in the background. I mean, all of that's important. And so that's what we're trying to relate, is just giving people an opportunity to get together and work on that kind of stuff, and talk about things in an open forum that you don't really get a lot of, especially even with cable news anymore. It just seems like a debate cycle every time you get on something. But
Yeah.
so trying to have something that's more discourse and good conversation, and trying to move the ball down the field kind of thing.
So it'd be a 1-day event or like a couple days, or how's it work?
It's 2 days, and then Sunday, Cliff Cash is doing a comedy show in Chicago. So that'll be cool. And then I've got a couple of speeches Monday afternoon, Tuesday, with a couple of unions and one farm group here in Illinois. So
And then you
then
go
I'm
around
gonna
the
go
country,
home for a little bit.
get to see the family. And
Yeah.
then you're gonna go around the country with this though, right? This is not a one-time thing.
Yeah, so we're gonna do LA in March, and then I think we're gonna do Denver after that. We're gonna try to hit. When we started talking about it, we thought, well, it's it's great that there's these big events that people go to that are spread out, and they go to their own city or state capital, and they get together. But We did one in Washington at the end of 25. That was kind of a a big rally kind of thing, and everybody seemed to really really enjoy it. It gave a lot of momentum going into the year, and so we just thought we could do that at different places around the country. Not everybody's going to go to DC, but if we could do, LA, Denver, Nashville, Atlanta, uh, places that don't get to see a lot of that kind of stuff. Um, Give people a chance to get out and kind of get involved a little differently.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I mean, keep us up to date. I'm sure you'll be reporting
Mm,
back, everybody who's following you.
yeah.
Yeah. If you're on this and you aren't following Robert, if you're from my, following here on Substack, I'm a huge fan of his work and what he's doing. Make sure you're following because this year, I think 26, he's gonna do some remarkable stuff, especially along these lines. And if you do anything writing, if you do any of those writing seminars um, online or make them available, I mean, let us all know. I think you get a lot of people really interested in that.
I might do that if this does well. I've never taught a writing class before or anything like that, so I'm gonna kind of see how that goes. I've had a lot of interest, and I've had a lot of people reach out to me and ask me
Yeah.
to do something like that. And so I've never done it before, so I'm gonna give it a shot, and we'll see if it goes well. We're gonna do it. I'm so sorry about this
Take your
phone.
time,
Hang on
man.
one sec.
All good. Put in the comments, guys, and hit those hearts if you guys want to get Robert to doing some of this stuff. I think it'd be phenomenal. I want to see it, so let's encourage him to keep uh, keep doing what he's doing. I think a writing class from Robert Arnold would be like a master class seminar, and of course, he's doing it for free in a way that would allow all of us to kind of not just kind of continue to enjoy his work, but also learn from him. So I was urging people to kind of hit those like buttons and comments to encourage you to make some of that skill set you have, that remarkable skill set available. Elizabeth, yeah, he is brilliant. So I think whether you're a writer or not, I think this his creative process. It's one of the reasons why we connected. Is I just like to know how he's thinking about stuff and your approach to things. Whether you're on site heading to Minneapolis into where all of this activity is happening, Robert, or whether it was over the holidays and kind of just how you're Venezuela, just how you're coming to understand this American moment, and that's why we have started to call this weekly series that we do, Notes on America, because we don't have, by the way, we don't have a set. It looks like we lost him, but he'll be right back in just a second. Um, we don't have, just so you guys know, we don't have a set agenda. We don't talk about what we're going to talk about. At first, I know Kathy, he can't hear. He fell off. He's having some problems, but he'll be back in just a second. Um, um, we just get on and kind of riff. So a lot of times these conversations range from what's happening with families, what's happening with politics, what's happening with the idea of America, the American experiment. Um, so there's Robert right there. Let's see if we can't loop him in. And that becomes the basis for kind of where our conversations go. And so we've had a really good, I think, run of this. This is the seventh or eighth time that we've done this, Robert. I was just sharing with the audience, like kind of how this came about, what we're doing. Both of us will be on the road quite a bit, I think, over the course of the next um, year, hopefully, because we'll both be engaged in the fight, doing what we do in different ways. I'm hoping we cross paths a couple times. My expectation is we probably will. We'll be connecting in some airport somewhere. We'll be able to actually do this in person in a studio somewhere. Would be
Yeah,
cool.
man.
But we'll figure it out.
Uh, I'm gonna be in He's gonna be California in early March. I'd love to get together. I know that California is a lot bigger than people give it credit for, but
It's a big place,
if I'm
but
gonna
I can get
if I'm gonna
down
be
to
that
wherever you are.
close,
Yeah,
I'll just be in LA. Yeah.
give me LA is a big place too. But give me a lead time and we'll get together. Maybe we'll do something in person. I think that'd be a lot of fun to have
Oh
this
man, that'd be
discussion.
great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one of the things
Uh,
I'm looking at, I want to get your impression on because we've been talking a little about it a little bit, Robert, is CNN came out with some polling today, which was just absolutely horrific for Donald Trump. I mean, some of the worst polling I've ever seen for a candidate. He's at a historic low now for any president, essentially ever in the history of modern polling. Now, that doesn't mean that the base is collapsing. But let me just run through some of the numbers because a lot of you guys know that I'm sort of a numbers geek, and that's kind of what I do. 87% of Republicans are still supporting him. They're still kind of holding firm, but and that sounds like a very high number. It is a very high number, incidentally, but it is historically much lower than we normally see. Normally, we see that number at a 94, 93% range. So I know there's been a lot of hand wringing and kind of grinching and navel gazing about whether or not the Republican base is holding firm. Look, there's no question that 87% is a strong base number, but it's also not where Trump has been historically. He is losing Republican support. Is it massive? No, but he is losing it. You can't get as low as he's at right now. But the real hemorrhaging is with independent voters. I mean, just an extraordinary, extraordinary collapse. And most of this is on the economy. Like almost 60% of voters are basically saying that the cost of living stuff is now his fault. Huge numbers, but these aren't marginal majorities. We're not talking 51 to 53%. We're talking, 58%. Some of these go up to a 70-30 wrong direction, which is just extraordinary. There isn't a single policy position where he's viewed positively more. He's still at 42% on immigration, but that's a really bad number. And that's where he's at the highest at. If you go to Venezuela after that, he's still sitting in the 40% range. The economy is tanking. Foreign policy generally is tanking. The tariff policy just bad, bad, bad. So look, he's a year into this thing. The honeymoon is clearly over. This is overshadowing and buttressing every bad sentiment people have about what's going on with ICE, what's going on with Venezuela, what's going on with Greenland, what's going on with the Epstein files, what's going on with absolutely everything. Like there's nothing breaking right for this administration. So it's really bad for the country. It's really bad for, I think, for our national character and our soul. But the politics obviously allow for, I think, some revival. So what are you feeling on the ground? I'd love to hear what comes back after this meeting with progressive groups too, whether there's kind of this excitement, enthusiasm, unity. Like I want to know what kind of the sense is. But where do you think things are at generally, Robert?
You know, sometimes I try to step back and make sure that I'm not getting too much confirmation bias, where, obviously if you're really tuned into progressive politics regularly, you're going to kind of get that. So I do try to step back and see what else is going on, what other people are saying. And there is a sentiment I feel like amongst, I use, it's the country club crowd for me. It's that kind of not super plugged into politics, independents, I guess, but lean conservative mostly.
Yeah.
Not quite super Trumpers, but and once I start to see that favor kind of waver a little bit, especially it started with ICE and the National Guard stuff a little bit. The Greenland thing is wildly unpopular
Yeah.
amongst the people I'm talking. I mean, that is just a crazy, doesn't need to be done. Um, what are we even doing there? Kind of
Do you
sentiment
think he
that's
does it,
in.
Robert? Do you think he does something there?
No, I don't. I don't. I don't think that they are. It's a no win. I mean, I know that they want the mineral rights and they want to control the downstream of that. And I know that there's going to be some trade routes, probably that I guess some shipping routes and stuff that are going to open up with, you know, the loss of the glaciers and such. But I, there's not a win in there from an optics standpoint. There's no one's on your side if you do that. If they're Israel, I mean, I guess that's it. Uh, you really alienate yourself against you further alienate yourself with your enemies, and then you start really making enemies of your allies. It, I think he wants it, but I don't think he can go that far. Um, so I don't know, Mike. What do you think?
I think we're probably going to see some sort of, negotiations to allow us to have a stronger military presence than we already do. and there'll be some further negotiations on the extraction of mineral rights and seaway passages. Nothing we couldn't have gotten, with just a normal handshake and meeting over a cup of coffee. But, he's got to do it the way he's got to do it. And then they'll declare victory and say, well, we didn't really want it that way anyway, but what a brilliant negotiation. What a master strategist he was in order to, get us in this position to get all of these things, which we get at the expense of pissing off Denmark. Like the Canadians are lining up on the border. Like it's
That's
absurd. It's like a John Candy movie from the 80s. Like it's so absurd and ridiculous. Well, that what we're even saying, like our allies fear us, and our enemies are looking to us. We've just gone through the looking glass, and I don't know, Robert. I still can't figure out, and I've kind of stopped trying whether this is just malice or, is this a Russian asset? Is this an asset of our enemies, or is it just such base incompetence? And maybe it's a combination of the two. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the immediate threat is so in front of us that it doesn't matter. But either way, I mean, there's no good answer for any of this.
um I I get I get really frustrated by the whole uh strength or peace through strength rhetoric whenever it's not peace. I mean, you're bombing four countries and you're you're talking about invading a fourth or a fifth, that's not peace through strength. That's just imperialism through imperialism. I mean, there's nothing there's nothing nuanced about it. Uh, I The thing that worries me, I guess, the most is that there are a lot of things that I thought, well, he won't push it that far. He's made that uh, oh, I'm gonna attack Venezuela or I'm gonna invade Venezuela, and then it's just an extraction thing. But it's still it does all the things that you don't want it to do. It pulls that thread of sovereignty and it pulls the thread of foreign diplomacy. And Maduro's a bad guy, but there's still a way we do these things, and it's not. Uh, we've made plenty of mistakes as a country. We've done plenty of things that are terrible, and that we should have thought through better. But we're supposed to learn from those things and not use them as precedent for doing it the next time. And so Greenland, I want to say that it's and I hate to be, gosh, Mike, I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist for a second. You know, I, I I hate to say that things seem like distraction points for other things. That it's whether it's the files, the Epstein files, being held longer or whatever. I think some of it's that. Uh, I think some of it is exit positioning. I think they know they're losing and they've got to figure out how to uh, hedge themselves against re-regulation once there's not going to be a Republican majority in Congress, and they'll probably lose the executive in 28. So they're going to have to hedge that. I don't know what the media companies are going to do, but that's, gosh, that's the thing that scares me is that they're just trying to figure out their own end game. It's not about taking care of the country anymore.
No, I don't think it is at all. And again, there's so many basic strategic questions of politics that have been violated because I don't think that they're looking at that same calculation. A lot of times, and I write regularly about polls and polling analysis, and polls are scientific. Doesn't mean if you have a correct understanding of polls, doesn't mean that every poll is accurate. That's not the way polling works. But it's a gauge of public opinion. People always say, "Oh, the polls are wrong. It's all BS." I mean, that's not true. That's just not people not understanding the way the science works. But having said that, um, this White House is not concerned about public opinion in the way every other president in the history of the country has ever thought about it. They really do believe, in my opinion, they really do believe that just raw power is all that matters. And if you keep pushing the envelope and you look for conflict that ultimately where voters, their voters especially, will fall in line on is in the midst of violence and mayhem, they will look to the stronger person to continue to lead them, and they'll continue to maintain that base of support. That's why I think they're looking for violence in Minneapolis, why they were looking for violence in Portland, while they're looking for violence in Los Angeles and DC. They're looking for violence. They want the conflict because Trumpism is fueled. That is the oxygen of Trumpism. Violence is the oxygen of this movement because as long as there's a fight, as long as it's violent conflict, nothing else matters. They can get away with everything else as long as there's this base human fear of violent conflict. And, they will either force you into their side by saying, if you're not with us, you're against us, and you're going to see how that ends. Or we're the stronger party anyway because we've got the military, we've got the police, we've got all the levers of power in this, the awesome power of the federal government. So you can't possibly win anyway. And what they're seeing in these polls is the American people are not going to just give this up. I mean,
Right.
I think a lot of folks mailed it in the election and didn't realize the consequence as much as I think a lot of our viewers and you and I who focus and study this so much. But the American people they're not gonna just hand this over. They're not gonna give this up. It's getting more intense. The opposition is getting more intense. When you start to see over 50% of people passionately and strongly opposed, those numbers don't come back. And that's a really difficult place for a typical politician to recover from, which is why I think that they're moving to this phase of having to handle all of this in a very non-traditional way. I'm not Pollyannish about this. I think this was the goal all along. I think
Sure.
that political violence is a tool that they use just as a matter of course, but I think that is going to escalate.
Do you think that it matters who they're pointing that violence at? I mean, I know that they're going to have a lot of support from their ultra loyal base, but there's a big wide swath of people that can recognize when you are just being, you know, a warmonger for the sake of being a warmonger. I mean, if you're just going and looking for a fight, that's pretty, a lot of people can, I hope that a lot of people can recognize the difference, that we're going after fights that we don't need. Um,
That's exactly right. The problem is unifying the opposition groups to this, right? And that's where Donald Trump has a particular talent of making us choose sides on things that we wouldn't ordinarily do that. Going into the Wayback Machine with like Colin Kaepernick. Like
yeah,
when he turned football into a hyper partisan, everything is a partisan fight. What are the color of M&Ms? Like that's a culture war issue. Cracker Barrel logos, like Merry Christmas, the war on Christmas you've written about. Like all of these things, they sound ridiculous, but what they're really doing is they're just more and more tools cementing your resolve in your tribe not to leave. And with all of the opponents and all of the targets and all of the people that have been attacked by the MAGA movement, the one thing that is inviolate in the movement is you cannot betray the movement. You cannot turn on the leader. And you see what happens to those people. I know that personally from the Lincoln Project. Once you're a Republican
sure.
who steps out of line, you are vilified and attacked. And that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene, just recently experienced. Is we can say that she had, this epiphany. I can tell you from experience what happened was their disagreement between her getting his endorsements to run for governor of Georgia got to the point where he got pissed off, and at that point, you're out. You are cast out of the tribe. You are literally the scapegoat, blamed for everything, and pushed out to die of exposure in the elements by yourself. So she had a decision to make, which is, what is my survival here politically? Or beyond that, because the
Yeah.
attacks will just be ruthless. It's from, attacks on your life, attacks on your business, attacks on your reputation. And that's the way a cult works, is you have to keep everybody in the fold, because the most threatening thing to that type of an organization is somebody from the inside saying, this isn't right. Like, there's something very deeply wrong with this. You're seeing it with Tillis now. You're seeing it with Massey now.
Yeah.
These people who are saying what 90% of Republicans in DC know to be true, which is this is a charade. This is a con. This is a fraud. Once you say it, they will move all of their cannon to attack you. So yes, it's about Latinos, Muslims, gays, everybody except for straight white Christian males, and even then sometimes,
Yeah.
right? But ultimately, like I said, the goal is to keep the base, the band together, incite it towards radicalism and even violence, because then once things devolve into violence, you're in a much stronger position because you're fighting a disorganized opposition.
Do you think that they have gotten to the point where they've pushed so many people to the outside that they're just they've turned into the loud minority at this point? Like it's
Well, look, there's an anti-MAGA majority for sure. Now, there's an anti-Trump majority at the moment for sure. The numbers are getting worse for him. Has Trump fatigue set in so deep that um it can't, is it irreversible? I don't know about that. Like, one of the things that is the most frustrating to me about all of this, and having done this for so long, is realizing, not just in the United States, I mean, I've done work in countries all over the place, people will put up with some really, really bad stuff if they feel prosperous.
yeah,
They'll put up with horrible things to their fellow countrymen, to themselves, to other human beings, if they feel like the economy is going good and they're going to do well, in the coming year. They will put up with all sorts of bad stuff, and we see that in voting behavior here, which is, if the economy is doing well, so what? He says these bad things. And he talks about not having elections and banning Muslims from coming into the country, and calling people these horrible names. We'll put up with it. I mean, as long as I'm gonna as long as the real estate market's doing well and I'm making money and the job is gonna get a raise this year, and opportunities look good, we won't take them seriously. So it's a troubling part of, it's not just characteristics exclusively of the United States. I think it's particularly pronounced here because we are a prosperous nation,
sure.
and we lack a lot of the cultural anchors that other countries do. But we know from history that that's a human story.
Do you I mean, do you think he's gotten to the point now or the point yet where it's a flat spin where he's just there's no way to pull it back?
I don't think he thinks that way. I mean, this is a guy who, got convicted of 34 felony accounts of sexual assault, who had, his bathroom at Mar-a-Lago raided where he was keeping, classified information.
Yeah,
This is a guy who has done really horrible things throughout his whole life and just never paid attention to those and just kept marching forward despite all of the odds. And just through sheer delusion, which he can convince other people of, he continues to march forward. I still am of the belief that that comes to a spectacular crash at the end of all this. I do.
sure.
I do believe that. And maybe we're seeing the signs of that. I mean, I've thought that 20 times over the past 8 years, but I don't think that this ends well for his movement, his top lieutenants. I just don't see it ending well. But I don't know that there's a calculated strategy, Robert. I mean, I want your thoughts, but he doesn't approach these things the way you and I do.
Yeah. Well, I guess more to my thought there was I think he's reached a point where he's overextended. He's he's got too many people in his pocket. He's in too many people's pocket. He's he's when the expectation is, if you push some money through my crypto and that I'll make he's out of decisions that he can make because he's spread himself too thin. He's out of capital um economically. So I don't
Yeah.
know how he pulls that back. You're gonna have to piss somebody off. And so that calculation, who do you make mad? Like what group are you willing to alienate? you can't do it to the American people much anymore. I think that's what this fraud thing is going to be. Is he's going to try to cancel these programs across the country so that he can shore up more money and buy more favor, or uh, make get people to pay into his thing. But that only goes so far. I mean, now you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. This is not. There's no
Yeah, but
there's no economic rebound in that.
here's what I love about that. I think you're 100% right, but you just described a real estate developer.
Well, yeah, 100%. That's all he is. He's not even a good one.
It's not even well, yeah, that's
Um,
exactly it. It's like I'm not overextended. I just need to borrow more and leverage more. Like get overextended and over leveraged is exactly right. That is where he's at. But look, this is a guy who has failed upwards his whole life. Like, right? Like there's no rational way this guy could have come back from the crash that he dealt with after the 2008, crisis when he was about to go bankrupt until he goes to, you know, the Russians to bail him out. The
yeah,
Russians bailed him out. Like that's where he goes. Like there's money. Do you go to the Saudis? Do you go to the Israelis? Do you go to the Russians? He'll go to the Chinese. Like he'll go wherever. But leverage is what the guy is habituated to do. He can't help himself. Like he's a New York State real estate investor. I mean,
yeah.
my God, the amount of leverage that he's using and is comfortable playing in. It takes a framework of just sheer bravado and delusion to be like, I'm going to borrow, 100 million times, an X of 100 million times to buy this skyscraper, and I'm too big to fail because no one can afford this collapse. So somebody somewhere will bail me out. Like
Right.
I think that's just his approach to life. It's reckless. And that's the problem is we have a person in the White House who's making these reckless decisions. And I think a lot of the mindset on understanding Trump is when you realize that he is this over leveraged real estate investor, and that has been the way he has kind of gotten through life, is like with Greenland, he's going to set the negotiating piece 100 times outside the flank of where he really wants to get.
Mhm.
And if he gets just 5% of what he wants, he's going to call that a huge gain. Set aside the fact that he could have gotten that by normal diplomatic means without alienating all of our friends and allies. But he also believes that that is, in his mind, that is a real victory. And then he'll just start again once he signs the deal. Once he negotiates the deal, it's just that's the first negotiation to keep going and getting more. It's constantly more.
Do you think that this is the time when somebody just tells him flat no, like there will be no 5% of what you actually want kind of thing?
I mean, I think he's running into no's, but I don't think he sees them that way. I think he either pivots to something else where he can get something else, or he, claims victory anyway. I mean, how many times did he claim victory on stuff this last year, which were clearly not victory? The tariffs are a great example.
Yeah.
Like he'd just lie about it. He'd lose. He'd get kind of pantsed by the Chinese, and everyone's like, call his bluff, and he's like, well, this is a win, and it's like by every metric, that's a colossal failure. But he'll just spin it as a
Yeah.
win.
It's interesting. I had a friend of mine. I When I was much younger, I worked in the bar business for a long time, but a friend of mine compared his current behavior to that of a drug addict
Yeah,
at the end, like whenever they really get
they're hitting bottom. I think we lost your sound. Yeah. Can everybody else hear him, or is it just me? I think his internet connection's getting a little chilled there. Let me know if you guys are still there. Hit that. Oh yeah, you can't hear me there. Okay, he dropped off. He'll come back in, but give me that. Yeah, no. Let me ask you all a question because I think Robert's making a really good point, which is um he's acting kind of like a drug addict who realizes the truth but can't kind of get off of what he's doing. I really do want to hear. There he is. Robert's back. Let me see. I really do want to see if I want to hear his comparison because I think he's hitting on a really great analogy. So let's see. You there?
I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Uh,
You're
they
making a,
tr-
yeah. You're talking about an addict, late stages.
yeah. So he's he's he owes money to everybody or favors or whatever, and every move is faster and more reckless, and it's just that has cannot control themselves anymore. It's it's manic behavior that typically, unfortunately, I, I've had friends that have not made it out of addiction, several of them, and this is very similar to the behavior of someone that's in that those last throes of it, just in the manic behavior. Um, so I think it's a I think it's an interesting uh uh oh oh my goodness. I think it's an interesting metaphor there to look at it from that perspective of having an addict of some sort running the thing.
Well, Susie Wiles, right, his chief of staff in the Vanity Fair article
Yeah,
said he's got an alcoholic's personality, which
yeah.
she knows. She's grew up in an alcoholic family. So now I'm going to ask you a tougher question, which is, one, how does it end? And two, does that personality type at his age hit rock bottom, or does he just keep going down with us on the roller coaster ride?
Eventually, everybody in that space loses their they get used up. They get used up by the people around them. He will he will out he'll wear out his welcome with a lot of these things. Once he can't do anything for them anymore, nobody will have any use for him. He'll just have to live out his money and whatever. And then I think you'll see that circle of influence get lower, like the quality or the not the quality, but the pedigree of the people he's dealing with will just steadily decline. I mean, they're crooks anyway. It would just be a lower class of smaller yacht crooks, I guess, would be the um.
It's like Caligula in the
Yeah,
last days.
yeah. It is just that. These people aren't very clever. They just do things the same way always. I do think it ends without him making the decision for it to end. I think there'll be a few Republicans that are retiring that go ahead and resign, and we start to see some change in the House, and that will give some pause to it. That'll put some brakes on some of this because some of this right now, Mike, to be honest, is moving at such breakneck speed that it's not sustainable. Something, something has
To
to give.
give. The plates
Yeah,
stop the spinning plates start to fall and crack on the ground, break
yeah.
on the ground. So what
Um,
how does governance, I mean, I know I'm asking you questions that there's no precedence for, so it's not entirely
sure.
fair, but I just wanna know how you're thinking about it. W There's so many questions, and so, like, what is the role of the minority party at that in that scenario? How do average Americans keep sane, and what's the best thing we can do to stabilize our country when a madman, the Mad King, is running, unleashed through this moment in time.
I think there's going to be, a couple of years of whatever's left of the Republican Party kind of re-establishing itself, kind of figuring out what they're going to be. Um, I I think that we'll end up with a ranked choice kind of system, and maybe we get away a little bit from a two-party system. If we can start making those moves, then I think we have a better chance of sustaining this long term. Um, and we just have to show a usable model in that. So where you can have a traditional DNC party, traditional RNC party, but then also if there's going to be like a Tea Party or a more progressive left, where you kind of have to have a coalition or something, to vote. I think that's what we're going to move toward, or again, ranked choice or something, and do away with electoral college. I think that's probably what most people really want, um, if we're being honest. But I, I think that's a 10-year plan, 15-year plan. That's certainly not something that comes out tomorrow. So in the meantime, it's about putting policy in place that actually works and puts the brakes on some of this just reckless governance. It's just reckless. It is lack of regard for anybody that's has a less than $6 million valuation, and it's a whole bunch of us, Mike. There's there's nothing for anybody outside of a couple of $1,000s a year if you don't have a $6 million valuation.
Truer words, man. Truer
Um,
words.
and I mean, they tout that and they say, "Oh, well, we increased this, and we gave you another year on we increased the earned income tax credit or the child tax credit by $200, and we're going to give no tax on tips or overtime up to a certain amount." But it really turns into about $1,800 a year if you got everything. It's it's a drop in the bucket compared to what you could be getting, what you should be getting, and it definitely won't offset your healthcare costs that are skyrocketing at the moment. Um, so we have to put some things in place. They they have to get the brakes put on just the careless governance piece of it and start getting back to legislating for the people. And that's, gosh, that's both sides are have been terrible at it of late, but something's
Yeah.
got to give there. I think that's the start of it.
Have you been following? And I have not. So I'm genuinely asking you. Mom Donnie's proposal in New York for universal childcare.
Yeah. I mean, I think he'll get it done.
It sounds like it'd be remarkably popular. I mean, that's the one way to deal with cost of
Yeah.
living is just directly.
I All of that stuff is very popular. I don't understand the people who rail against it because their argument's always the same. Well, I'm scraping by. Like, well, now you don't have to anymore. You're going to get free childcare. Like, that's part of the deal. Like, you will get it too. Well, it's universal. Um, but just to get them on board with anything that is a progressive idea. Uh, but uh, Bashir in Kentucky got universal pre-K passed. They're working on universal health, child care, and
How,
I think
how
it's
are
going to go in Kentucky too.
how are they funding it there? Do you know? Through property tax?
Property tax, and they are. I don't want to misspeak. Part of it's property tax, but they have a different tax structure county to county that's added in there. I don't know if it's an additional sales tax or something. There is it. I'll look into it. I'll get back to
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that's
yeah.
but
It's
it's very
being done.
popular.
The question is, it's being done
Yeah,
and it's popular
yeah,
and for the moment, it seems to be really working, right? It's not something
yeah.
that people are they're happy about it. They want it, and it does have a real impact in people's lives in terms of cost of living and affordability. I mean, if you've got to have well, there's so many arguments that make sense economically for working families, whether you're a single mother or whether you are in a married family unit to be able to allow for two incomes. It has never made sense to usually have one partner work if or two partners work if you've got to pay for childcare. Like, there's no
Yeah.
way. It's a trap. There's an economic trap. There's just no way to make it work.
It it's so expensive to have, and God forbid you have two or three kids.
Right.
I've got three, and it's very expensive. It's just
Yeah.
very expensive. And you stack healthcare on top of that, and I mean, I I truly don't know how people are even breathing sometimes, you know, especially people that are making $40,000 a year, 50,000. I mean, gosh, to say that people are making $50,000 a year just not doing well, it's not much money. I mean,
No.
it's nothing. And I'm talking, it's not much in Arkansas. Like,
Right.
God forbid, New York or LA or California, anywhere. I mean, it's not any money. Um, and I don't know, something's got to give there. I think that's the first step. I think they're going to have to roll back or reinstate some of the ACA premiums. There's so much reform that has to happen to our healthcare system. You know, there is no model that works right now. Like it has to, I think it's going to have to be rolled back and restructured completely, I think, in order for that to find something that works. It's not going to, we can't continue to put band-aids on things. I've said before, I think we are really good at being bad at our jobs. We just keep shoving shit in the closet, you know? Like, we'll fix
Just
it later.
just described Congress.
Yeah.
Really, really good at being bad at our jobs.
And it's killing us. There's no good legislation. There's no good reform. All of it is is filled with fat that they had to put in there to get it passed. And you know, at the end of the day, it's not. It, there's a statistic. I don't know how real it is, but you hear that uh, if 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 the entire country was in favor of a bill, it still has a 30% chance of passing. And if nobody was in favor of a bill, it still has a 30% chance of passing. Because it, it's all a boys club up there that they just decide what they're going to do. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent now, but you know
That's
how it is.
we're here to do tangents.
Yeah,
What can I switch gears a little bit and
please. Yeah.
Go back to Minneapolis a little bit and what your assessment is of the situation after you've written on it. You were there on the ground. You're seeing what's happening and continuing to unfold. Um, it's intense, man. There's a passion, there's an intensity there. People are pissed. They're not taking it.
It's bad. I mean, I can tell you from being there, it's bad. It's as bad or worse than you think it is. And it's not it's not your usual group of protesters where you know you see the same people that are you know rabble rousers. It's them too, but it's also it's my age group, it's your age group, it's my parents' age group. It's the whole it's the whole spectrum, and they are angry. And even if you support ICE, if you're one of those people that supports the program, to not understand that uh, that was a bad call that he operated outside of of procedure um, that was murder essentially, you know. And I look at it that way. But even if you do support them, if you support that, you can still say that this guy was reckless and he didn't do his job the way that we expect it to be done. Um, and I think that's some of the problem. It's the nature in which it's being handled, and they're just more and more empowered to continue to behave that way. They are starting to go door to door and knock on people's doors, and just that I think will ruin whatever support they have. I know it's tanking daily, but the longer this continues, the one thing that they had that was popular is tanking with it. And I'm not one of those people that thinks it turns into some very, very dark, violent time where we have um, exchange of gunfire on both sides. I don't know that it comes to that. I don't think that it comes to that. I think it is attrition. Like, I think they will just wear them out. That will become so hard for the American people at large to continue to see that the popularity will just continue to tank and they'll have no choice. I also think you're starting to see it a little bit in the people that are working for ICE. That I don't know. It's not the ones on the tapes. It's the ones that you see on the street that just don't. You can tell like they just don't have it to
Say
get
more about
involved
that
and
because you
stuff.
you you talked to those guys. You saw those guys. Say more about
Yeah,
that.
there. And it's not a huge number, but I would say like 20% maybe in that neighborhood that you can just tell just it's what they signed up for. So I won't say that that it's not what they signed up for, but you can tell that they are not the same cloth as the guys that are just absolute pieces of shit, that, but they're still doing it. I don't know. They're making nothing. They're making 50 grand a year. Those bonuses are paying out over 3 years or something. I think there's something that they're gonna try to pay them out immediately if people join and stuff. But and yeah, that's gonna get people to go do this thing. But I just think it's not only becoming unpopular with the American people, I think it has to start becoming unpopular with the people doing it. And the white supremacists, the Proud Boys that are on staff, like those guys are going to do it forever because they love it. It's they are the bad cops. Everybody knows one guy that got a badge for the wrong reason. It's just a bunch of those guys. Um,
These are the guys that
that
got rejected by local law enforcement everywhere else, and it's like, we'll give you money to
100%.
go, yeah, and the authority and the badge and a mask to go be what you need to be to make yourself feel like you're somebody.
It's And I mean, you can just tell by the way they do things. They're obviously not trained. I mean, they don't have any sort of like real law enforcement training. But I don't know. I think I think the American people are going to have their feel very soon of it, and I don't think that there is. They may continue to keep pushing it or whatever. I know that centralizing it in Minnesota is easy for them right now because uh, it's a it's a it's a it's a concentrated area where they can send all their people and have the fight in one place. But I don't think they're gonna have the stomach for it for long. I guess that's my best answer on it.
I mean, they're already losing it. I mean, the public opinion has moved from a 39%, disapproval of ICE to 53%. This was before the Renee Good murder and before, there's families out there that are, taking to the streets protesting that are getting gassed, tear gas now. There are immigrants now being shot. Like these guys have guns. Like,
Mhm.
they're shooting people. They're shooting people. Now they're going door to door, and it's like I just don't I don't know if like the size of ICE is getting bigger, right? Like or they're putting all these guys on the payroll. I think that when we, I don't know how much data or evidence Jamie Raskin's going to get in this congressional investigation, but you start seeing J6 pardoned people in ICE, you start seeing Proud Boy leaders and Oath Keepers, which we know they're there,
Yeah,
hired by ICE, leading these groups of ICE. I don't think the public's gonna. I mean, I hope to God that Americans still have it in our character and our soul to say, "This is a line too far. This has to stop."
I think there are enough in that independent swath that would say like this is not what we're doing. The loyalists are gonna eat it up. They don't care. I mean, they're in it forever at this point. I think. I I think that you are right. You touched on something a second ago. I believe that you're right. I don't think it can continue much longer. As that, it's one thing to have people tear gassed or pepper balled when they are attacking the vehicles as they're coming in and they are in front of the federal building and they've established a clear line of where that sort of nonviolent direct action stuff. That's one thing. People can watch that on TV and say, "Oh, well, they just need to stay back. Like, what are they doing there?" When you see them tear gassing neighborhoods just because they've arrived in the neighborhood, not everybody that's in that neighborhood at that moment is 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 anti-ICE in a way that some people just happen to be there, and you start throwing tear gas and pepper ball. It's just it's third world f. And no, when that starts coming to your community, I don't care how much you voted for. Like you don't want that. Promise you don't want that. I've spent time in Latin America where there are, you know, a lot of gang violence and stuff like that. And there's plenty of people, there's plenty of security, and you feel safe in a broader sense. But there's also always that little bit of fear of threat, at certain places. And it's not a good feeling, right? If you're in Honduras, you're in certain parts of San Pedro Sula, it's not a great feeling. Again, you got security, so you're the best you can be. I don't think people want that in the streets, in Minneapolis or Texas or Arkansas or Cal. No, I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds they can cheer it from afar, but when it starts coming to your area, it's going to be a whole different animal. Um, and they're starting to see pregnant women and moms and dads and family people being treated this way. It's not just young people that are trying to be rebellious. I think it's going to have a negative effect on the whole thing for them.
I couldn't agree with you more. I do want to bring up, maybe this is a little bit of a touchy political subject, but the debate is now rising in Congress and with Democratic candidates. I've gotten 4 or 5 very prominent candidates from throughout the country. I wrote a memo on my Substack saying the Abolish ICE messaging is not helpful. Now, I know there are people on very different sides of that. That doesn't mean that I support what ICE is doing.
Sure.
Quite the contrary. What I want to make sure is that all if you look at the tactics of what ICE is doing, by 70% people are opposing that.
Hmm.
Now, if you look at the way in a campaign, the way what we do is we look at an issue, and that gap between that 70% who oppose the tactics and the 53% who say they want to abolish ICE, that 20% margin, that 17% margin, that's where the majority in the House and the Senate is going to be won.
Sure.
So my advice is focus on the tactics. The message shouldn't be abolish ICE any more than it should have been defund the police or open borders. It should be ICE out of our schools, ICE out of our churches, ICE out of our hospitals. Focus on the messaging where there's dramatic super majority support. But I'm open and want to hear other points of view, because this is something that's going to be hotly debated over the course of the next
Sure.
few weeks, because it's not going to get better. And
Um,
ICE will grow more unpopular.
I think you're at an interesting point. One, I mean, you have to have immigration enforcement. Like you have to have that branch of, you know, but I think that ICE has taken on such a negative tone that I think you are at a point where you have to dismantle that program and build something else. Now, and instead of saying, "Oh, we're going to put reforms in and we're going to do this," I think you, because of the stigma that's attached to the title of that organization or group or whatever you would call it, that there will have to be a dismantling of that and a restructuring of a different form of immigration enforcement, and it'll have to take on a new name, because I think that at this point, ICE existing in any form of name is will always carry the ghost of what has happened. And so I think whether it's a branch of CBP that comes out that is, a dedicated, you know, interior um, force that does that, that has a different set of tactics and stuff, and you can rewrite it from there. Something like that. But I just don't think that there is a way to message to we want to reform ICE. And look, you and I are speaking the same language. I
Yeah.
know exactly what you mean. I just think that from the optics of the broader population, saying we're gonna, instead of doing the thing that we usually do, which is band-aid this shit, we are going to dismantle and start over, and we are going to put it in a way that we can control it from the beginning, and we're not trying to roll back tactics or roll back institutional standards or procedural stuff. Um, Again, it has to. We have to have something that performs that duty. But I just think that ICE is a toxic brand, for lack of
I
a better
agree
way to
with
put
you.
it.
Here's where we are saying the same thing, and I like having the conversation because I think it's kind of moving us down a road to finding a solution to all of this. I agree. I think, and in fact, politically, I hate to say this too, but the worse ICE gets, almost the better as a political cudgel. Like, don't get rid of the best boogeyman that you've got there politically because people can wrap their mind around seeing what ICE is doing. Um, my fear is if you don't have that replacement policy, you end up in a defund the police position. Because what happened with the
Sure,
defund the police argument was you had in a country very, very open for the first time, probably in my lifetime, to saying, "Oh my God, the police officers are murdering people. Like this can't go on." And
sure.
the dominant response was defund the police, which is the next obvious question is, well, then what? Like, what do we do without police? Like, are you kidding me? And it was such a bad brand that even Clyburn, this isn't just Mike Madrid saying this. This is,
Yep,
members of the Black Caucus, leaders of the Black Caucus, civil rights figures were saying that's what killed a big part of the electorate. That was just so bad. And it's the same thing with like open borders, fighting on immigration. If you don't have a plan other than to eliminate this stuff because it's bad, you are opening yourself, you're giving back all of the political ground that these guys just forfeited to you.
sure.
So have a reasonable plan. Ruben Gallegos is saying this. Let's have a reasonable plan and let's center our arguments on that while being extremely passionately critical of the tactics and behaviors that ICE is using as the example for why we need to create this new system. But to simply just say abolish ICE as if that's a message, I think is an enormous mistake politically.
Well, I think we get caught in these loops sometimes in America where messaging and the slogan become more important than what we're actually doing, and
Yeah.
so we get lost in these spin cycles where defund the police becomes kind of a mantra and everybody's chanting, "We got to defund the police," without really understanding what that means. Because I would say to most policymakers, defunding the police is is not doing away with the police force. It is, hey, how do we structure programs? How do we use some of this funding that we're spending on tanks and SWAT tactics and stuff? Like, how do we restructure some of this funding to improve community programs that have been proven over time to reduce crime in certain areas? And how do we make a police force that leans more toward the protect and serve and less to the militarization? And I think those are all important conversations to have. But when you get it stuck in this defund the police, and everyone on the right hears that as no more police force, like they're going to walk around with hugs and flowers for people. I mean, that's not what it meant, but that's what they heard. And then if you go to someone on the left, you say, well, we're going to reform ICE instead of abolish it. Instead of hearing we need this program, like we need uh this uh this thing has to exist in some form. We're just going to keep it there. I think it's the concern is that it will just be the same people under a different leadership, and that those tactics will still be used. That's why I say, whether it's expanding CBP to have an interior branch that is that that operates in a certain way, and there's definite standards of procedure, and you know, and then doing away with all these people that we've hired to be ICE agents in the last year or something. I just think the moniker itself is toxic. And so yes, you can't abolish the program itself per se, but I think dismantling what it is and having a plan for something to replace it, but replace it well, be the thing that it should have been all along is going to be important.
It shouldn't be a private militia for recklessness, chaos,
No.
violence, and personal grievance.
Yeah.
And I think that I hope that there's broad agreement on that basic American principle. But we all know that that's not going to happen, right? So I think that's the frustrating part of this moment, Robert. Is we want to build something constructive, but the threat is so immediate, it's so before us that you've got to prioritize sort of the attack on what is happening. Like
Sure.
that is absolutely the case. That's what's mobilizing people. Is that's what's causing this reaction in amongst the public. But what you don't want to do is have an overreaction to the overreaction, and
Sure.
that's my longer term fear is like to see the opposition develop a sound, reasonable, moderate, rational policy solution that is humane, that makes for safety. You can have deportations for those that are not supposed to be here without cruelty and terrorizing and hunting human beings down. That is absolutely possible.
100%. It's not even a difficult thing to do.
No.
Um, it, my fear is that we allow, we allow ourselves to not fix the thing because we're scared of the optics of the other side. So
Yes.
if we go in and we just, we're going to do this, we're gonna tweak this a little bit, and no harm, no foul. We're gonna make it better. It just doesn't. Germany didn't keep the Gestapo post World War II because there was still going to be crime in the streets. I mean, you know, uh, and I just my fear is that it will always carry that negative thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's really more about
Branding.
and I hate to say rebranding, but yes,
Yeah.
essentially that. Like, let's figure out a better way to do this. We have to have it. We have to have immigration. And I also think that, God damn it, I really wish that politicians would talk to the electorate the way that, like, instead of just saying, instead of just being this giant, deeply polarizing opinions, we could just say, hey, we can't, we're gonna dismantle this thing, but we're gonna put something like we could just have plain conversations about it instead of having to just have a 1 minute talking point, the sound bite that we run with. We should have real conversations about what the next steps are and what the plan is, so that people understand what's happening, and there is no secret backroom deals that are being worked on that nobody understands. They're being gate kept because I just want plain governance, Mike. I guess is the thing. Like, I
Well,
just want to be able to have the conversation.
and that's it seems it's somewhere along the line there became a fear of actually putting a policy proposal specifics on the table because once you do that, you become the point of attack.
Mhm.
And if your opponent doesn't come up with specifics, they can attack you for things like defunding the police. Well, what does that mean? It could mean anything. Or the open border attack was particularly salient because Democrats never for 30 years put a specific immigration, proposal on the table that talked about border control. They didn't. And that didn't mean that they were for open borders, but when Fox News says that and you come back and say, well, no, we're not, and they say, yes, you are, unless you've got some policy specifics, you're going to lose that battle. That's ultimately what a big part of 2024 was about. That's the danger here, and I think it's what you're saying is, and I agree with you. I think there is an appetite to have a rational policy discussion in large part because what we're witnessing is so extreme right now that even if you are too far left or a little too far right in your policy proposal, it's going the parameters for rational policy debate have gotten pretty wide in an era of extremism. Like we've got private masked militias essentially going through the streets of suburban America, hunting people down. That's where we're at. Like we can have I think that opens up the that, and I hate to say the middle because I don't believe in a middle, but just a rational policy discourse to say, how about we don't allow that? How about we
Yeah,
come to some agreement that we can control our borders, we should control our borders, but the priority should be in being humane in the way that we do this.
sure.
That is not unreasonable, by the way, and it's entirely doable.
It it wasn't that long ago that the idea of immigration reform lent itself more to, how do we take the people that are here working and that may not have legal status, and how do we get them legal status? How do we how do we make a program that allows them to pay taxes and be part of the society instead? Like, what's our choice there? Like, our immigration reform idea was path to citizenship, and now we're just, I don't even know what our immigration reform policy ideas are anymore.
We don't have one because of the
Um,
that's a great point, Rob. Because what we've done is the extremes have so occupied it and the threat is so existential that any rational policy is not even considered because it's like, well, that's never going to happen. And I think I'm agreeing with you more and more. I think that the opportunity to start the best way to show how extreme this is from a policy framework is to actually put specifics on the table that people broadly agree with, and then let the Republicans oppose that. Like,
yeah,
let them say, no, we'd rather gas families, we'd rather shoot people in the face, and we'd rather hire J6 seditionists to lead these militias through the army, through our streets like an army with masked, faces and jackboots. Like that is the Republican plan. That is the
yeah.
GOP plan right now.
And, and every day I am more surprised, and I should be less surprised, but I'm more surprised the number of people that support it, that just think, this woman got what she deserves. Man, if you think that young lady deserved to be shot over what happened in it, we are so far apart on humanity that I don't know that we can ever bridge that gap again. Um, it's just the the threshold for violence like that in people's minds on the right is so low, um, that it's alarming.
It's alarming. I think it's the poison of decades of and hours of watching Fox News telling them that these are all criminals that want to rape your women and put your children into slavery and are all bringing drugs here when all they want to do is DoorDash your food quietly and maybe get a tip for it.
They just want to be quiet and left alone for the most part,
Quite,
and
yeah.
um, gosh, so many of them, and I guess there's exceptions to every rule. So many are just such solid members of the community. Like, just I just don't understand it. And I think that's another reason why people are so adamant about, don't come in and do this way. You know, um, I don't know. Uh, it's disheartening, but I do think there's momentum, Mike. I'll end on that
Yeah.
positive note that I do
Yeah.
think there's some momentum going in the right way. We just have to stay at it.
And let's wrap up here. It's been a good discussion. And I think what is notable about this conversation is that while we are digging into the roots and the foundation of why we're starting to see this turning in opinion and sentiment, we now have quantifiable data saying the American public has changed. You're
Yeah,
seeing it on the ground, thousands of people showing up in a cold, wintry Minneapolis suburbs day after day, facing some really tough stuff. New people, this isn't just the same old folks. We're seeing that in TV man on the street interviews, but now we're seeing historically significant consequential polling data saying that this president, this administration, and most importantly, what it's doing are just deeply, deeply unpopular with the American public.
yeah.
So
Which I'm glad to see.
I'm glad to see it too. It gives me some hope. One last plug for what you're doing, Robert, and how people can kind
Yeah,
of jump in.
So, if you can't make it to Chicago, which I understand, it's kind of last minute, we start today. But there is, if you want to support this in some way, commonground.rsvp, and there's a couple of links on there. One is for candidates. That's a fundraiser that's separate from what we're doing. But uh, there, feel free if you want to help with the cause a little bit. To That would be great. Check out we'll have a live stream up here in just a little bit, so feel free to jump on there. I'll post on here where it's going to be, but I'll probably just do a record for my Substack. I think it's gonna be the best way to do it. But uh, we really want to build some community and start pushing this thing forward and gather some momentum on having real conversations around this stuff. So
Yeah.
that's the next thing.
I'll be a little bit more shameless. If you can financially support the organization, support what they're doing, support their work, amplify Robert's voice and his work. Let's make sure that all of this effort to kind of push for a better country begins with the actions that we take today. So, Robert, as always, I appreciate you, man. I think
Mike,
I'm thankful for your brain and your courage at this moment in time, and I'm looking forward to doing this again next week.
yeah, man. I love it. Again, thanks so much. It's great. I really enjoy these a lot. So
Be
I'll
safe out
talk to you
there.
soon. I
Yeah,
sure
be
will, man. I'll
safe.
talk to you soon.
Okay, we'll talk soon.